the second time in the last 3 games and fell 2 games behind the Chiefs and the Raiders in the AFC West. The Broncos have lost the last 2 games started by Trevor Siemian, and the 10 points scored were the lowest amount of points scored by Denver in over 2 years. It doesn't get any easier for Denver. They finish the season against the Patriots, Chiefs, and Raiders. Merrill Hodge calls that schedule brutal. Good to have you with us, my friend, as always.
What's up, buddy?
But I'm going to start with Max here on this one.
Get Max.
How much is John Elway to blame for the Broncos' struggles?
Well, actually, the Broncos are struggling, and they might not make the playoffs even, because John Elway is an excellent GM. That's why they're struggling. John Elway's responsibility is to the franchise, not this iteration of the team. If any GM, that goes for any GM, if they have stability and job security, they should have their eye on the ball season to season, of course. But the idea is, over the course of their career, how good can they be altogether? How many games can they win? How many playoff runs can they go on? How many Super Bowl appearances and wins? John Elway got to the Super Bowl, didn't get back the next year, won the Super Bowl in very different ways. One with an offense, one without a defense, one with a defense without an offense. And going into this offseason, what were the options? Peyton was gone. He wasn't good anymore anyway. Osweiler wanted way too much money. We can all see he's not worth the money. Who was available? Actually, Simeon won the job and was decent. And Paxton Lynch has upside, at least you'd think. What, are you going to get mad at him because he didn't pick up Dak Prescott like no one else did either? Sometimes guys elude you that way in the draft. John Elway has prepared the Broncos for success in the long run by avoiding a bad quarterback contract that would have satisfied people but submarined the Broncos' chances. That's why they may not make the playoffs right now, because John Elway is who you want as the GM for your team.
Well, I'm quite sure you feel that way, and John Elway should throw you some cookies because clearly you're willing to be an apologist for him. I won't take long to make this point because I've got to get to Merrill Hodge. But let me say this. I'm not going to engage in condemnation about John Elway. He has proven to be an elite executive, but there is no question that he dropped the ball with this particular team. First of all, C.J. Anderson has been down. I do understand that, but he only had 100-yard game on the season before he went down on October 24th. Secondly, even though Osweiler hasn't proven to be a good quarterback, some have speculated that he might be the worst. That's because that's the Brock Osweiler that's in Houston, not the Brock Osweiler that quarterbacked the Denver Broncos for 7 games last year, not the dude that you were grooming and nurturing to be the heir apparent. And you seemed ill-prepared to replace him, which is why you had to settle for Trevor Siemian, who's had some impressive moments during this NFL season. But you can't completely absolve John Elway in my estimation, Merle, because I think about Malik Jackson being gone, Danny Trevathan being gone, elements from that defense. And, they've had problems against the run. They've had problems defending against tight ends. And then on the offensive side of the ball, C.J. Anderson goes down. But prior to that, he wasn't what you thought he was going to be when you matched the offer that Miami gave to him. So he ends up staying. And then on top of it all, we're looking at a quarterback situation that you were not prepared to address in the event that Osweiler decided to leave as a free agent. You've got to have that kind of foresight as an executive, I think, to some degree. Anyway, John Elway has dropped the ball. It doesn't mean that he all of a sudden is not as good and as gifted as he is, but it does mean that A grade he's typically accorded, he doesn't get for this season.
Well, I'm going to clean it up a little bit because I think both of you hit some good points. You have to look at what is the foundation of the Denver Bronco offense. What is the one thing that makes it tick, that you have to have? You better be able to run the rock. So if there's somewhere they overestimated, I think it was in their running game and their runners. They weren't that good getting into the last stretch of the season. They just had moments.
Yep.
Which actually speaks to Peyton Manning's brilliance. I'm going to tell you this. What he did mentally and cerebrally as far as getting them in the right looks all the time, only a guy like Peyton Manning can do that. You can ask that to do any other quarterback other than a Brady or a Roethlisberger. Now, let's go back to the quarterback scenario. I think that he nailed that. And here's why. In the Pittsburgh game, when Denver lost, in the second half of that, Osweiler, last year, Osweiler started to get exposed. When you started to move him around a little bit, you got a little bit of pressure on him, he was not the same. He started to tear off right about then. Denver knew what they had there. So rightfully so, he did the right thing, and they got the right quarterback there. Even though they brought all the guys in, they got the right quarterback.
And Merrill.
Where they missed it, though, was their offensive line and their runners. And that's the thing that makes that's the hinge. If that hinge doesn't work, I'm telling you, you can't run their offense.
And I want to address the quarterback for a second because Elway had a great comment in the offseason. When they were negotiating with Osweiler, he said, look, I don't know why there's not a middle class of quarterback. Not everyone's either a scrub who you don't pay at all or a franchise player who gets, tens of millions of dollars a year. Why can't there be a middle class? That was a strong message to Osweiler. Look, you're maybe our best option. We'll give you some money, but you ain't a franchise guy. Meaning, like, if you have Osweiler, you're still looking. And that was the right approach to take. And someone else was willing to pay him like a franchise quarterback. That's their problem.
The only thing, Merrill, I'd like to add is this. I'm not disputing anything about Brock Osweiler. I'm not impressed with him. But let's understand that sometimes you have system players. Guys that excel in particular environments, in particular systems. I think as bad, as questionable as Brock Osweiler has looked this year, I don't think he looks that way in Denver. He might not be the answer. You're probably absolutely right. Who am I to debate you on that? But the flip side to it is that I do believe that he would be better than we've seen him in Houston. And something could be said about that.
I disagree. I think you'd see the exact same guy you're seeing in Houston. Really? And he would not. Simeon has played much better than Osweiler would have played in that circumstance.
Okay.
All right.
Where they missed it, offensive line.
I'm saying better than what you're seeing. I'm not saying better than Trevor. I'm saying better than what I'm seeing from him in Houston.
I think you see that in Denver.
Wow.
No doubt.
Okay.
You started to see it.
Right.
It just wasn't enough sampling, but it wasn't a ton. It was just enough to go, whoa, we got problems here.
Broncos currently are the 6th seed. We will see more of you later with Trey and the crew covering a little NFL. We got a good one today.
I wish we had some time with that. That's funny.
Didn't I tell you? I told you Jerry Jones wouldn't let me down.
That's
I
funny.
told you he would open his mouth and do something to mess this up. I told y'all.
Right.
I told y'all.
It's all just football. Everything football to me, you know what I'm saying? So it was a run play, and me and Chris was looking at one another in the face, and I cut block. It's not like he didn't see me; he was looking right at me. So it is what it is. They got upset with it, but if they watch film and they watch me play, they know that's what I do. That's if they watch film, though.
Totally clean play by you.
It wasn't a dirty play.
It was a dirty play by a sorry player. He don't do nothing. He come to the game, don't catch no passes. He come to the game to chop guys from the back. And he got the same agent as me. So when I see his in Atlanta, I'm going to beat his.
Tell us how you really feel. Stephen A., you think it was a dirty hit?
It absolutely was a dirty hit. I don't care what anybody says. I don't give a damn what the rule book says or anything like that. Aqib Talib is absolutely right in terms of it calling a dirty play. And here's why I would say that to Harry Douglas. I don't know Harry Douglas personally. He's been in the NFL for about 7 or 8 years. He's on his grind. He went to college at Louisville. You're 32 years old. You're a grown man. Don't talk to me about rules and what rules allow. You sit up there and you got a cornerback, a contemporary within the National Football League. Y'all are away from the play and you literally dive at his knee. That is not something that you do. I don't give a damn what the rule book says. You know, as a human being, there's certain things that you don't do if you don't have to do it. You weren't in a tussle. You weren't in a melee. You weren't in a pile, a scrum. It was just you and him. He's away from the play. He's not anticipating anything, and you dove right at his right knee. That is a dirty play. It is unethical. And as far as I'm concerned, I want to see what the National Football League Max is going to do, because I think that Harry Douglas should be suspended immediately for at least a game, and he should have himself docked a game's pay. Not to just mention that, it's also important that the NFL does that, because the NFL would certainly not hesitate to fine somebody or suspend somebody if something like that harmed the players, according to what they're concerned about. If they're protecting themselves about potential lawsuits with concussions and beyond, look at what they've turned the game into. Look at what they have folks watching out for. They're encouraging individuals to be hit low because you want to avoid high hits at all times. So if you really, really care about player safety, don't just come to me with the head shots. Come to me addressing cheap shots like that, because it was a cheap shot. The only last thing I'd like to say is, Aqib Talib, be cool. Because even though you're right, the fact of the matter is you don't need to be threatening to beat as you know what when you catch him in Atlanta. Anything that goes down between y'all from this point forward in a physical level that's off the field, I'm automatically going to blame Aqib Talib. Why? Because you just went and publicly threatened the man. You don't have to do that. Be cool. It ain't worth it. chill out, just relax. But Harry Douglas deserves to be fined, and as far as I'm concerned, he should be suspended for 1 game for that hit. That was a cheap shot. It was Bush League. I don't give a damn what the rule book says. That was a cheap shot. It was Bush League, and he should be suspended.
Well, we agree that it was dirty for those reasons. It was malicious, and it was unnecessary. It was gratuitous. It was superfluous. So we agree that it's dirty, but it's not illegal. You can't fine him. You can't suspend him. And it's fair for a player to say, look, football is a hurt game. The way I view it is if I have a chance to damage the other team's asset, one of their resources, within the rules, I'm going to do it. It's one of the reasons I didn't have a problem with Bountygate, and I didn't think there should have been punishment for it. It does matter that it's in the rules or not in the rules. Not morally. I disagree with you saying ethically. I think, and not to split hairs here, but I suppose we have to. There's a difference between ethics and morals if you really do want to split those hairs. Morally is what's right and wrong based on empathy. Let me put myself in that person's shoes and see if I'd want that done to me. Come on, it didn't really affect the play. You didn't have to do that. But ethics is about a standard of behavior based on rules. And the rules in this full contact sport protect him here. Chris Harris was pursuing a runner, was running away from his own goal line, was not being blocked by anyone else, so it was a legal block by the rule book. And I don't see how you can fine or suspend a player for a legal block. Now, we agree it was messed up. I mean, it wasn't a chop block by definition, but it was messed up because he meant to injure. But you know, again, that could, so therefore it was mean-spirited. It was malicious. But one can approach the game of football from the point of view that you can play it with malice, that you can look to injure the other player if it's within the rules, that gives you an advantage. After all, when you're going now you and I both agree, you're trying to mess with a guy's career, that's messed up. But you know, Lawrence Taylor used to put that shoulder down and crack the guy in the small, the quarterback. What do you think was on his mind? Probably severing the guy's back from the rest of his body. That's the nature of the game. If it's within the rules, maybe messed up. But it's actually not unethical by definition, and I don't see how you fine or suspend him.
Well, I'll tell you how. I'll help you see it. When a quarterback gets hit low, that play is supposed to be definitively wrong, and you get fined or you get suspended or whatever the case may be. But on several occasions, we've noticed instances where intent comes into the equation. Now, obviously, it's very subjective, it's very arbitrary, and we understand that. But someone's intent matters no matter the malice that comes associated with a particular sport, Max. So what I'm saying is this. Again, if you were in a scrum and that's what you decided to do, that's what comes with the territory because you're Chris Harris Jr. You got to watch yourself. You're in the middle of that. You are away from the play. Y'all are jogging at a very slow pace. So what I know you agree that it was messed up, but what I'm saying is that elevates the intent portion of this conversation.
Well, what I'm saying
because
is
when we look at a Harry Douglas, and we could see so easily that because he was away from the play, his intent was of malice, and the NFL says that they care about player safety. You can adjust and modify your rules to some degree in a particular instance to say, excuse me, we know that's the rule, but you were clearly dirty in that one. You're going to pay a price for that. I think they could do that.
The defense could be, yes, I'm trying to hurt him. This is football, and I'm allowed to try to hurt someone within the rules. And that's the point.
But they could subjectively decide that your malice intent is of such a nature that we need to address it so we can discourage other individuals from following suit and doing the same thing.
Not retroactively.
They can do that.
That's not fair.
They can.
It's not fair to do it retroactively.
Well, it wasn't fair to do what he did, but he did it.
Are you suggesting so the NFL should legislate that in a full contact sport, even if you do something,
they already do.
Within the confines of the rules, if we determine, are we now living in a world where in the NFL it's not okay to try to hurt your opponent?
Well, yeah. Well, Max, you trying to tell me you sit up here and you haven't questioned some of the rulings on the part of the NFL, considering the violent sport? You haven't questioned anything?
Yes, but that's from a misapplication of the rules or my belief that a rule should be changed, not retroactively punishing a guy for playing within the rules.
Max, hold that thought. Let's get a former player. We got Ryan Clark in the house here. Your thoughts on this?
Well, everybody's right. It's within the rules, right? So legally, you can do that. I've been in competition committee meetings
probably the last 3 or 4 years, and this has come up. And it's something I've tried to get out of football. We remember back to...
First, let me ask you, was it dirty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's not the... But even though that's the question, that's not the point.
Okay.
Right, so there's two different things. The question is, was it dirty? It was dirty, right? And that's why it was handled the way it was handled. If I'm the producer of that game, if I'm in charge of the cameras, I follow Harry Douglas on the next play, because when it happened, when he cut Chris Harris, I said to myself, they're going to fight him the next play. Because that's what I would have did. If I was Chris Harris and I wasn't hurt, I would have fought him on that play. Because I went to every competition committee meeting and said, you guys have to stop this. You remember back to Eric Berry, when he got his injury, he was cut downfield. The problem with this play is though it's within the rules, it's unnecessary, right? They're away from the ball. Mm-hmm. Both guys are jogging. You can see him set it up too. Stand up tall, high, and then shoot his kneecap. So I try to never speak to intent. But looking at this play, there's only one way to read it. You weren't trying to make a play to allow your runner to advance, because Chris Harris wasn't moving toward him. The problem is this block is legal. He hit him. He was in front of him when he hit him. It's a legal cut block. It's not a chop.
I have one question for you.
There's nothing we can do retroactively.
I do believe there's something you can do. Why? Because the NFL has religiously gone about the business of reviewing plays and then reaching a decision. Half the time, I wouldn't say half the time, but a lot more often than not, play rulings that you find as a former player highly questionable. Right. So what I'm saying to you is that couple that, Ryan Clark, and I'm asking the question here.
Definitely.
Couple that with this. As a guy, competition committee, players union, you're very much entrenched in all of this. Have you not found yourself in situations where you look at the NFL and they say, okay, this is according to the rule, this is legal, but the NFL has still made a ruling that you deem relatively questionable?
Yes, definitely. But the one thing that the NFL always has when they make those rulings is an explanation within the rules.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, if they decided to look at this and say, okay, we want to find him, it was a malicious intent, we don't like the way it works.
Same league that talks about safety, though.
It goes against player safety.
Same league that talks about safety.
There is nowhere in the rule book other than saying, we think you had malicious intent and it was unnecessary, right, and we're fining you.
That's all I'm saying.
So now, wait.
That's what I'm saying.
So when that happens, even though D. Smith and the Players Association will all say we want Chris Harris Jr. to be healthy, we want the game to be played fairly, they're going to have to defend him. They're going to have to appeal it, because within the rules negotiated by the CBA, but you can't.
But let him go through that process of having to defend himself, so you can discourage other individuals, right, because they may fear losing their money.
Right, but now we double talk ourselves, because we get upset as a union whenever they do this, and we feel like we're right. Right, we feel like it's not within the rules. The CBA doesn't state it. We've negotiated one thing and then go away from it here. We can't do it.
All right, we got a lot more to get into on First Take and with this man. Good to see you, Ryan Clark.